Hey guys, welcome back to Fantasy Hub. Today's story is one of my favorites.
You want to know about vulnerability? Let me tell you something I built a fortune on never showing weakness. Tech Vision Solutions didn't become a billion-dollar empire because I let my guard down. Board meetings, hostile takeovers, corporate warfare, I navigated it all with the precision of a surgeon and the coldness of winter. But standing in room 412 of St. Mary's Hospital at 2:47 a.m. on a Tuesday in March, watching my Aunt Lorraine's heart monitor flatline for 8 terrifying seconds before stuttering back to life. In that moment, I wasn't the CEO who'd graced the cover of Forbes 3 times. I wasn't the woman who'd stared down venture capitalists and made them blink first. I was just a niece, terrified. "Stop hovering, child," Lorraine wheezed, her voice barely above a whisper. "I'm not dying today." My jaw clenched so tight I thought my teeth might crack. "You better not." That's when she walked in. I've met world leaders, movie stars, and tech moguls who commanded attention the moment they entered a room. But this woman, this nurse with warm brown eyes and steady hands, she moved like moonlight, quiet but impossible to ignore. "Visiting hours ended at 8, Miss Moore," she said, adjusting Loren's 4 with practiced efficiency. Her voice carried a slight rasp, like she'd been working for hours. My automatic CEO tone kicked in. "I'll leave when you collapse from exhaustion and become my problem. Hard pass." The deadpan delivery stopped me cold. I looked at her, really looked, and felt something shift in my chest. Something I hadn't felt in years. Something dangerous. Her name tag read Gianna Baker, RN, but that told me nothing about the way she tilted her head when she was thinking, or how her eyes crinkled at the corners when she suppressed a smile. It didn't capture the competence in her movements, or the way she seemed to take up space without demanding it. "Miss Moore," she continued, checking Loren's chart, "your aunt needs rest, and frankly, so do you. When's the last time you ate something that wasn't from a vending machine?" I wanted to snap back with something sharp and cutting. Instead, I found myself saying, "Thursday? Thursday what?" Thursday was the last time I ate real food. Jaz's eyebrows shot up. "It's Tuesday night. That's 5 days ago." "I've been busy." Running an empire doesn't mean you can ignore basic human needs. She moved to the window, adjusting the blinds to block the harsh hallway light. "Your aunt mentioned you've been here every night for 2 weeks. She's all I have left." The words slipped out before I could stop them. Gia's movement stilled, and for a moment, something soft flickered across her face. "The cafeteria closes at midnight," she said quietly. "But there's a vending machine on the 3rd floor that has surprisingly decent sandwiches. And the coffee in the family lounge is actually drinkable after 2 a.m. Are you giving me directions to survive a hospital siege? Maybe." She headed toward the door, then paused. "Room 412 will still be here in the morning, Ms. Moore. Your aunt will still be here." After she left, I stared at the empty doorway for a long time. Loren's breathing had evened out, the monitors beeping steadily. I should have gone home. Should have crawled into my king-sized bed in my penthouse apartment and tried to sleep off the exhaustion. Instead, I found myself on the 3rd floor at 2:17 a.m., feeding dollar bills into a vending machine. The Turkey Club is the safest bet. I spun around to find Gianna behind me, holding 2 steaming coffee cups. She'd changed out of her scrubs into jeans and a Métis sweatshirt that had seen better days. "You're still here," I said stupidly. "Double shift, and you're still here too." She offered me a cup. "Which means you ignored my advice about going home." "I don't take orders well," I noticed. She settled into one of the uncomfortable plastic chairs scattered around the vending area. "CEO thing or control freak thing?" "Is there a difference?" "Definitely." She took a sip of her coffee, studying me over the rim. CEOs make decisions based on data and strategy. Control freaks make decisions based on fear. I should have been insulted. Instead, I found myself sitting across from her, cradling the coffee like a lifeline. And which one am I? Jury's still out. We sat in comfortable silence for a while, the only sounds the hum of the vending machine and the distant beeping of monitors. The hospital at night was a different world, quieter, more intimate, like being in a ship floating through space. Your turn, Gianna said suddenly. My turn what? Truth or dare? I stared at her. Are you 12? Truth, when's the last time? You cried? The question hit me like a physical blow. Images flashed through my mind, Loren's arms around me at 16, holding me as I sobbed in the funeral home parking lot. My parents' casket being lowered into the ground. The way Lorraine had whispered, I've got you, baby girl. I've got you. June 7th, 2015, I said quietly. What happened on June 7th, 2015? My parents died in a car accident. Lorraine held me in the parking lot of Morrison Funeral Home while I cried for 3 hours straight. Gia's expression softened. I'm sorry. She was supposed to be my guardian for 2 years, just until I turned 18 and could access my trust fund. Instead, she became my everything. Taught me how to drive, helped me with college applications, walked me down the aisle at my wedding. I stopped abruptly. You were married? For 18 months. Turned out he was more interested in my portfolio than my personality. His loss, the simple statement delivered without pity or judgment, undid something inside me. I'd had therapists tell me the same thing with far more words and far less impact. Truth or dare? I asked. Dare. Tell me something you've never told anyone. That's not how dares work. It's how this one works. Gianna leaned back in her chair, considering. I wanted to be a doctor. Had the grades, the MCAT scores, the whole 9 yards. But my mom got sick during my senior year of college, and nursing school was faster, cheaper. I could start working sooner, help pay for her treatments. Did she ... She's fine now. Remarried to a great guy who treats her like a queen. But I never went back to medical school. Kept telling myself I would, but ... not. She shrugged. Life happens. Do you regret it? Some days, but I love what I do. There's something beautiful about being with people during their most vulnerable moments. Being the steady hand in the chaos, like moonlight, I thought. Quiet but impossible to ignore. We kept talking until the sky outside began to lighten. About books and movies and the bizarre things people did when they thought no one was watching. About her childhood in Boston and mine in the suburbs of Seattle. About the weight of responsibility and the luxury of choice. When her shift started at 7 a.m., I felt oddly bereft. Like I'd lost something I hadn't known I was looking for. Same time tomorrow? She asked, standing to leave. I'll be here. I know you well, and I was. Night after night, we met in that little vending machine alcove. She'd bring coffee. I'd bring stories from the corporate world that made her laugh. We played 20 questions and Would You Rather and shared the kind of secrets you only tell strangers in the dark. Except we weren't strangers anymore. I started looking forward to those midnight meetings more than board meetings or profit reports. Started choosing my clothes in the morning based on what I thought she might like. Started practicing conversations in my head during the day, storing up funny observations to share with her. It was dangerous territory, and I knew it. But I couldn't stop. The first note appeared in Gia's locker on a Thursday. Stop screwing the rich bitch. Or else. She showed it to me during our usual 2 a.m. coffee break, her expression more amused than concerned. Classy, she said, crumpling the paper. Someone's been watching too many soap operas. The rage that swept through me was immediate and incandescent. This is a threat. Welcome to nursing, princess. She grabbed my wrist as I reached for my phone. Now help me hide the body when I find who wrote it. The touch of her hand on. My skin sent electricity straight to my core. We'd been careful not to touch, maintaining the pretense that this was just friendly conversation between two people thrown together by circumstance. But her fingers were warm and strong, and I could feel my pulse hammering against her palm. "You're not taking this seriously," I said, but I didn't pull away. "I'm taking it exactly as seriously as it deserves. Someone's jealous that I'm spending time with the hospital's most notorious visitor. Big deal." "Notorious?" "Audrey, you've been here every night for 3 weeks. You've had flowers delivered to the entire nursing staff. You bought coffee machines for every floor. Half the hospital thinks you're planning a hostile takeover. Are you bothered by that?" "By the coffee machines? Hell no. Best thing that's happened to this place in years. By the attention, the gossip." She studied my face for a long moment. "Are you?" "No." The word came out stronger than I'd intended. "I don't care what they think." "Good, because I don't either." The moment stretched between us, electric and dangerous. I was hyper aware of everything, the way her thumb brushed across my wrist, the slight part of her lips, the way her eyes had gone dark and serious. "Gianna," I said, my voice barely above a whisper. "Yeah, I should probably tell you something." "What?" "I don't do this. Whatever this is." "What do you do?" "I write checks. I make deals. I keep people at arm's length." "And how's that working out for you?" "It was working fine until you showed up." She smiled then, soft and knowing. "I have that effect on people." "Do you?" "Only the ones worth affecting." I was leaning closer, drawn by some invisible force. I could smell her shampoo, something light and floral that made me want to bury my face in her hair. Could count the faint freckles across her nose, see the tiny scar on her bottom lip that made me want to trace it with my tongue. "Audrey," she said, and my name had never sounded like that before. Like a prayer, like a promise. "We shouldn't," I whispered. "Probably not. This is complicated. Definitely. I'm not good at this." "At what?" "Feelings, relationships, not screwing things up." Her free hand came up to cup my cheek. "Then it's a good thing I'm patient." I don't know who moved first, maybe we both did. But suddenly her lips were on mine, soft and warm and perfect. The world condensed to this moment, the taste of coffee on her tongue, the way she sighed into my mouth, the feeling of coming home to a place I'd never been. When we finally broke apart, both breathing hard, she rested her forehead against mine. "Well," she said, "that happened." "That happened. Any regrets?" I searched my heart for doubt, for the fear that usually accompanied emotional vulnerability. Found none, not one. "Good, because I've been wanting to do that for 2 weeks. 2 weeks? Try 3. She laughed, and the sound went straight to my chest, warm and bright. "We have a problem, though." "What's that?" "I have to go back to work in 10 minutes, and you have to go home and get some actual sleep." "I don't want to leave." "I know. But your aunt is stable, and you look like you're about to fall over." She was right. The adrenaline of the kiss was fading, leaving behind the bone-deep exhaustion I'd been fighting for weeks. "Will you ... I started, then stopped. I wasn't used to asking for things. Wasn't used to admitting I needed someone. "Will I what?" "Will you be here tomorrow?" "I'll be here tomorrow. Promise?" "Promise." I went home that morning and slept for 12 hours straight. When I woke up, there were 17 missed calls from my assistant and 43 unread emails. The business world had kept spinning while I'd been kissing a nurse in a hospital. Vending alcove. I should have cared more about that. The second note appeared the next day. Last warning. Stay away from the money whore. This one was slipped under Gia's car windshield, visible to anyone walking through the parking garage. The message was clear. This wasn't just personal harassment anymore. Someone was trying to damage her reputation. We need to involve security, I said, pacing her small apartment later that evening. She'd invited me over for dinner takeout Chinese eaten on her couch while we watched old movies. It was the most normal evening I'd had in years. And tell them what? That someone's leaving me mean notes. That someone's escalating. Next it'll be nothing. Look, I've dealt with workplace drama before. This is just some bitter nurse who thinks I'm getting special treatment. Are you getting special treatment? She considered this. Well, you did have a massage therapist come to the hospital for me last week. You said your back was sore. Most people would have suggested ibuprofen. Most people don't have access to on-call massage therapists. Point taken. She curled up next to me on the couch, her head on my shoulder. But that's not the point. The point is, this is just noise. Background static. I'm not going to let some anonymous coward dictate how I live my life. I wanted to argue to point out that anonymous cowards could do real damage if left unchecked. But she was warm against my side, and her hair smelled like vanilla, and for once in my life, I didn't want to be the person who prepared for every worst-case scenario. Okay, I said. But if it gets worse, I'll let you unleash your army of lawyers. Deal? Deal. We lasted exactly 3 more days. The bomb dropped at 9:03 a.m. on a Monday. I was in a board meeting when my phone started, buzzing insistently, then my assistant's phone, then the conference room landline. Excuse me, I said, stepping out to take the call. Miss Moore? The voice was unfamiliar, tinged with barely controlled panic. This is Janet from St. Mary's. Hospital, you need to get down here immediately. My blood turned to ice. Is it my aunt? No, ma'am. It's about Nurse Baker. I was in my car before she finished the sentence. By the time I reached the hospital, a crowd had gathered in the main lobby. Security guards flanked a woman in a severe suit who was reading from an official-looking document, but all I could see was Gianna standing in the center of it all with her chin up and her shoulders square. Suspended pending investigation into allegations of narcotics theft, the woman was saying. Security will escort you from the premises. Check the cameras, Gianna said, her voice carrying across the lobby with icy calm. The woman hospital administration, I realized, practically smirked. The security cameras in the medication room were conveniently malfunctioning last night during your shift. That's when I knew. This wasn't random workplace harassment. This was a setup. My phone rang. Marcus, my head of security. Boss, we pulled the real security feeds from last night. Someone's framing her. How do you have hospital security footage? I may have made some friends in their IT department. After you had me sweep the building for listening devices last month? Right. I'd forgotten about that particular bout of paranoia. Send me everything, I said. And Marcus, start digging. I want to know who's behind this and why. Already on it. But boss, this isn't just about harassment anymore. If they're willing to plant evidence and frame her for theft, they're playing for keeps. I hung up and pushed through the crowd. Gianna saw me coming and shook her head slightly a warning. Don't make this worse, her eyes said. Don't give them more ammunition, but I was done being careful. Excuse me, I said to the administrator. I believe there's been a mistake. Ms. Moore. The woman's tone was professionally polite, but I caught the slight sneer. This is a hospital matter. I'm sure you understand. Oh, I understand perfectly. You're about to destroy the career of one of your best nurses based on fabricated evidence. That's a serious accusation. Yes, it is. And I have the security footage to prove it. The administrator's composure cracked slightly. That's impossible. The cameras were disabled on your internal system, not on the backup servers that your IT department didn't know existed. It was a bluff. Marcus was good, but he wasn't that good. But the administrator's face went pale, and I knew I'd hit the mark. I suggest you table the suspension until you've had a chance to review all the evidence, I continued, unless you'd prefer to explain to the press why you're persecuting a nurse who's been nothing but exemplary in her service to this hospital. Are you threatening me? I'm offering you a way out. Take it. The crowd was murmuring now, phones out, probably live streaming to social media. Hospital security looked uncertain, clearly not sure who had more authority in this situation. Fine, the administrator said through gritted teeth. The suspension is postponed pending further review. But Nurse Baker is not to enter the medication. Room without supervision. Understood, Gianna said before I could object. Thank you for your fairness. The crowd began to disperse, but I could feel the weight of stares and whispered conversations. By evening, this would be all over the hospital. By tomorrow, it would probably be in the papers. I just painted a target on both our backs. That was stupid, Gianna said as we walked to the parking garage together. Which part? The part where you basically declared war on the hospital administration to save my job. Would you have preferred I let them destroy your career? I would have preferred you think about the consequences. Now they know you're willing to go to bat for me. That makes you a target too. I can handle myself, can you? Because from where I'm standing, you just made a very public declaration that you're emotionally invested in a nurse's career. That's not exactly CEO behavior. She was right, and I hated that she was right. In the span of 10 minutes, I'd compromised my professional reputation, potentially damaged my company's relationship with one of the city's major hospitals, and confirmed every rumor about my personal involvement with Gianna. I don't care, I said. You should care. Your board of directors will care. Your shareholders will care. Let them. We'd reached her car. She turned to face me, and I could see the fear she was trying to hide behind her practical facade. Audrey, I need you to really think about this. Is whatever this is between us worth potentially damaging your career? Yes, you answered that. Awfully fast, because I'm sure. You're sure now. But what about next month, next year? What about when the novelty wears off and you remember that I'm just a nurse who can't even afford to live in the same zip code as you? Don't do that. Do what? Minimize yourself. Minimize this. I'm being realistic. You're being scared. Damn right I'm scared. The words exploded out of her. You want to know what scares me? It's not the hospital politics or the gossip or even someone trying to frame me for theft. It's this. She gestured between us. It's the way you look at me like I'm something precious. It's the way you make me feel like I could be brave enough to want things I've never let myself want before. What's wrong with that? Because people like you don't end up with people like me. Not in real life. In real life, you get bored, or your board of directors stages an intervention, or you meet someone more suitable. And I'm left trying to pick up the pieces of a life I rearranged around someone who was never really mine to begin with. The pain in her voice was like a physical blow. I reached for her, but she stepped back. I think, she said quietly, we should take a break. Let things cool down. I don't want a break. I know, but I think we need one. She got in her car and drove away, leaving me standing in the parking garage with a taste of loss bitter in my mouth. I thought the hardest part would be fighting the people trying to tear us apart. I'd never considered that the hardest part might be fighting our own fears. The next 72 hours were a masterclass in corporate warfare. I didn't just investigate who was behind the frame job, I went nuclear. Private investigators, forensic accountants, cybersecurity experts. I pulled every favor, called in every debt, and wrote checks that would have made my CFO faint. What I found was worse than I'd imagined. Dr. Patricia Hartley, the hospital's chief financial officer, had been skimming from the narcotics budget for 18 months. Small amounts, carefully hidden, but enough to fund a very expensive gambling addiction. When the audit schedule had moved up unexpectedly, she'd needed a scapegoat. Gianna had been perfect, the nurse who'd been asking questions about medication. Discrepancies, who'd been spending time with the hospital's most high-profile visitor, who could be painted as either corrupt or distracted. The beautiful part of the plan was that it didn't matter which narrative stuck. Either way, Gianna would be discredited and dismissed, taking the heat off the real thief. By Thursday, I had enough evidence to bury Hartley and anyone who'd helped her, but evidence wasn't enough. I wanted justice. I wanted revenge. I wanted everyone who'd tried to hurt Gianna to understand exactly what they brought down on themselves. So I called a press conference. "Ladies and gentlemen," I said, standing at the podium of the Hilton's main ballroom with Gianna beside me, "we're here today to discuss a grave injustice that was nearly perpetrated against one of the city's most dedicated healthcare workers." The room was packed. Every major news outlet, half the city council, and more reporters than I'd seen since my company's IPO. I'd made sure they all knew this was going to be worth their time. 3 days ago, Nurse Gianna Baker was suspended from St. Mary's Hospital on charges of narcotics theft. These charges were fabricated by hospital administration to cover up the real theft being conducted by Dr. Patricia Hartley, the hospital's chief financial officer. The room erupted. Cameras flashed. Reporters shouted questions. "Ms. Moore." One of them managed to make herself heard above the chaos. "Isn't this just a lover's revenge? Everyone knows about your relationship with Nurse Baker." The question hung in the air like a challenge. I could feel Gianna tense beside me, could practically hear her thinking this was exactly what she'd been afraid of. I smiled, cold and sharp and utterly without mercy. "No," I said. "This is what happens when you threaten what's mine." The room went dead silent. Nurse Baker is not just a dedicated healthcare professional. She's not just someone who's spent the last month caring for my dying aunt with more compassion and skill than anyone had a right to expect. She's the woman I'm in love with. And if you think I'm going to stand by and watch while corrupt administrators destroy her career to save their own skins, you don't know me very well. I turned to Gianna, who was staring at me with wide eyes and parted lips. "I know you said we should take a break," I said, ignoring the cameras and the crowd and the fact that this was probably the most public declaration of love in the city's history. "But I can't do that. I can't pretend this isn't the most important thing in my life. I can't pretend that you're not the first person who's made me want to be better than I am." "Audrey," she whispered. "I love you," I said simply. "I love your strength and your compassion and the way you make me laugh when I'm convinced the world is ending. I love that you're not impressed by my money or my power or my reputation. I love that you really see me, and you're not afraid of what you find." Tears were streaming down her face now, but she was smiling. "I love you too," she said. "You impossible, stubborn, wonderful woman." The kiss we shared in front of 36 cameras and half the city's power brokers was nothing like our first kiss in the hospital alcove. This was claiming. This was declaration. This was two people deciding that love was worth fighting for, no matter who was watching. When we finally broke apart, the room was in chaos again, but I didn't care. I'd said what I needed to say. "Now," I continued, back in business mode, "let's talk about the evidence that's going to put Dr. Hartley in prison." The fallout was immediate and comprehensive. Dr. Hartley was arrested within hours. The hospital board called an emergency meeting and issued a public apology to Gianna, along with a significant financial settlement. 3 administrators who'd been complicit in the cover-up were fired. My company's stock price actually went up, apparently. The market found my public declaration of love humanizing and authentic. My assistant fielded 12 interview requests from major magazines. wanting to do profiles on the CEO who chose love over image. But the real victory was watching Gianna walk back into St. Mary's Hospital 3 days later with her head held high. The entire nursing staff was waiting for her, along with a stack of patient cards and enough flowers to stock a florist shop. "Welcome back," her supervisor said, tears in her eyes. "We missed you." "I missed you too," Gianna replied, and I could see her trying not to cry. Later that evening, we found ourselves back on the hospital roof where this whole crazy journey had started. The city spread out below us, lights twinkling like stars. "So," Gianna said, leaning against the railing, "that was quite a week." "Quite a week," I agreed, wrapping my arms around her from behind. "Any regrets?" "About which part?" "About going to war with an entire hospital system for a woman you'd known for less than a month?" "None whatsoever." "About declaring your love for me in front of half the city?" "Not a single one." "About potentially damaging your professional reputation for someone who still can't believe she's lucky enough to be loved by you?" I turned her around in my arms, studying her face in the moonlight. "Gianna Baker, you are not lucky to be loved by me. I'm the one who hit the lottery here. That's not how the world sees it. The world can go to hell. The only opinion that matters is yours. And what if I told you that I think you're absolutely crazy for turning your life upside down for me? Then I'd say crazy is the most sane I've ever felt." She kissed me then, soft and sweet and full of promise. When we broke apart, she was smiling. "I have something for you," she said, pulling a small velvet box from her pocket. My heart stopped. GIANA ... "Relax. It's not what you think." "Well, it is, but not in the way you think. Just ... "Open it." Inside was a simple silver ring with a small stone that caught the light like captured starfire. "It's a promise ring," she said, suddenly shy. "I know it's not much, and I know you could probably buy me something 10 times more expensive, but I wanted to give you something that came from me. Something that wasn't about your money or your power or your ability to solve problems. Just ... me." I slipped the ring onto my finger and it fit perfectly. Like it had been made for me. "It's perfect," I said, my voice thick with emotion. "It's absolutely perfect. So we're doing this? Really doing this? We're doing this. Even though it's going to be complicated? Especially because it's going to be complicated. Even though people are going to have opinions? People always have opinions. The question is whether we're going to let them matter. And are we? Not a chance." We stood there in comfortable silence, watching the city lights twinkle below. U.S. Somewhere in the distance, a siren wailed another emergency, another crisis. Another reason why hospitals existed in the first place. "I should probably tell you something," Gianna said eventually. "What's that?" "I'm planning to go back to school." "Medical school." "I've been thinking about it since ... Well, since I met you." "Really? Really?" I realized that I've been playing. It's safe for so long, I forgot what it felt like to want something just because I wanted it. Not because it was practical or affordable or the responsible choice, just because it was mine. That's incredible. When do you start? Next fall, if I get in. I've already started the application process. You'll get in. How can you be so sure? Because you're brilliant and dedicated, and you have the best bedside manner I've ever seen. And because if they don't accept you, I'll buy the medical school and make them accept you. You can't buy a medical school. Watch me. She laughed, the sound bright and happy in the night air. "I love you, Audrey Moore. I love you too, Gianna Baker. Think we'll make it?" "I think we'll make it. Even if it gets messy, especially if it gets messy. Promise, promise." 1 year later, I found myself back on that same hospital roof, but this time I was the one carrying a small velvet box. The ring inside cost more than Jaya's annual salary, a 2-carat diamond surrounded by smaller stones that sparkled like the lights of the city below. But it wasn't about the money. It was about the promise it represented, the future it symbolized. When I saw her walking toward me in her scrubs, tired from another long shift, but smiling when she saw me waiting, I felt my knees go weak. I'd given presentations to hostile boards, negotiated deals worth hundreds of millions of dollars, and stared down corporate raiders without flinching. But asking the woman I loved to marry me, that was terrifying. "Hey," she said, reaching up to kiss me. "What are you doing here?" "I thought you had dinner with the Tokyo investors." I rescheduled. "You rescheduled a dinner with the Tokyo investors? Are you feeling okay?" "I'm feeling perfect, actually." She studied my face, and I watched understanding dawn in her eyes. Audrey ... double quote. "I know we said we'd take things slow. I know we said we'd wait until you started medical school and things settled down, but I can't wait anymore." I dropped to one knee right there on the hospital roof, surrounded by the sounds of the city and the distant beeping of monitors. It wasn't romantic in any traditional sense. It was better. "It was us. Gianna Baker," I said, my voice shaking. "Will you marry me?" She was crying before I even finished the question. Yes, of course, yes." I slipped the ring onto her finger with trembling hands, and she pulled me to my feet and kissed me like her life depended on it. "I love you," she whispered against my lips. "I love you so much. I love you too. Even though I'm going to be a broke medical student for the next 4 years? Even though you're going to be a broke medical student for the next 4 years? Even though your board of directors is going to have collective heart failure when they find out you're marrying a nurse? Especially because my board of directors is going to have collective heart failure when they find out I'm marrying a nurse." She laughed, bright and joyful. "We're going to be okay, aren't we? We're going to be better than okay." "How can you be so sure?" "Because love isn't always gentle, Gianna. Sometimes it's stolen moments and war zones. Sometimes it's fighting back to back against the world. But when it's real, when it's the kind of love that makes you want to burn everything down just to keep it alive, you don't question it. You just hold on tight and refuse to let go." I pulled her close, breathing in the scent of her hair and the promise of our future. Around us, the city hummed with life and possibility. Below us, the hospital continued its eternal mission of healing and hope. We'd found each other in the most unlikely place, under the most impossible circumstances. We'd survived gossip and sabotage and our own fears. We'd chosen each other again and again, every day, in 1,000 small ways. And standing there on that hospital roof, with the ring sparkling on her finger and her arms around my neck, I knew we'd keep choosing each other for the rest of our lives. "So," she said, grinning up at me, "what now?" Now we plan a wedding. A big one? As big or as small as you want." "I want everyone to know," she said firmly. "I want the whole world to know that Audrey Moore chose me." "The whole world already knows, sweetheart." "I made sure of that, kid, because I want them to know that I chose you too." The brilliant, stubborn, impossible woman who turned my entire world upside down and made me remember what it felt like to dream. "I love you, future Mrs. Moore. I love you too, future wife." We kissed again as the city lights twinkled below us, two women who'd found something worth fighting for in the most unexpected place. The hospital that had brought us together continued its quiet work of healing around us, and somewhere in the distance, Aunt Lorraine was probably wondering where I disappeared to. But for now, for this moment, there was nothing in the world except us and the promise of forever stretching out ahead of us like a highway lit by stars. Love, I've learned, wasn't about finding someone who completed you. It was about finding someone who inspired you to complete yourself. Someone who saw your flaws and loved you anyway. Someone who made you want to be brave enough to deserve their love. Gianna had done all of that for me. She'd taken the ice-cold CEO and reminded her how to feel. She'd shown me that vulnerability wasn't weakness. It was the courage to let someone see you as you really were. And as we stood there on that hospital roof, planning our future with the same intensity I'd once reserved for hostile takeovers, I knew that this was just the beginning. There would be challenges ahead: medical school, merging our lives, navigating the complex world of being a power couple in a city that loved nothing more than watching the mighty fall. But we'd face it all together, back to back against the world, just like we'd always been. Because some loves are worth burning everything down for. And ours was one of them.